Sorry I took so long. I had a hard month that ended off with me getting the flu, or maybe COVID, I don't really know. All I know is I spent a week pounding NyQuil because my lung hurt. Before I get started, go check out Black Label Skateboard's Light the Match video at the top of the description. Some of it, like the curvy rail, looks like stuff straight out of a video game. We see more and more of that lately, and it's a good testament to just how evolved skateboarding has become over the last decade. It's been a little while since my last dive into the Tony Hawk series. I've played damn near all of them, with just a few exceptions, and it's time that I check another one off of the list. Today, we're going to take a look at Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2. If you've been around for a while, like a long while, going back through this whole series, then thank you. And if you suggested this at any point, then thank you. Let's get started. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, developed by Vicarious Visions and published by Activision in 2020, is exactly what it sounds like. It's a complete remake of Pro Skater 1 and 2 with a few extra additions, all done in Unreal 4 engine. If you've been around here for a while, then you already know a lot about the team behind this game. Vicarious Visions is a Tony Hawk series veteran, having been responsible for the Game Boy, Game Boy Advanced, and Nintendo DS versions of each game. The lead designer of 1+2, Leo Zuniga, is a name I have mentioned a couple of times in the past. He was a QA tester for the original Pro Skater, and later on he served as the lead designer for American Skateland and Proving Ground on the DS, so needless to say, we love Leo's work around here. The lead engineer, Thomas Garis, is another team member worth noting. He previously served as a team member at Neversoft on a few of the Guitar Hero games. Most recently, he's been the lead gameplay engineer for Overwatch 2. My personal experience with 1+2 is a lot greater than most other games. I first bought it on the Xbox One on day one, and then later I bought it 3 more times, once from Epic, once from Nintendo Switch, and once finally just to add it to my Steam library. Really, I just wanted my name on every single one of the leaderboards somewhere, and I'm down 1 copy because I gave my Switch to my niece for Christmas. So my strange addiction to this game has been tempered a little bit. Needless to say though, I know exactly what to expect here. The career is as classic gets. Go from map to map, completing goals to move on. I can't tell you how many times I've said that in these videos, but I can tell you that it's comfortable and relieving every time. It's a familiar formula that works perfectly for this kind of game. The goals here take place across the various maps from Pro Skater 1 and 2, but they aren't exactly identical. There are a lot more goals, there are cash pickups, there are stat pickups, there are secrets, there's an insanely large list of general challenges to wade through. You can play through THPS 1 or 2's levels in either order, which is great. When this game first dropped, one thing I was concerned about was the possibility of locking the Pro Skater 2 levels behind completion of the first set. But the freedom given here instantly makes the whole thing feel a lot more fun. As you play through and unlock more maps, you'll simultaneously unlock those maps in the ranked and free skate category. There's free skate, as the name implies, but more interesting than that, there's a speedrun mode, which tasks you with completing all of the goals in the level in the fastest time possible. There's also ranked, which is your standard 2-minute single session that ends with taking a leaderboard spot. There's online multiplayer too, but if I'm being completely honest, that is the weakest part of the game. How is it possible that a game from this decade doesn't have lobby or voice chat? Or in the case of PC, text chat? I just don't get it. The gameplay is very true to older Pro Skater titles, but it has a few smaller details that specifically line up with previous Vicarious Vision entries. You've got your standard ollie, no comply, boneless, flip tricks, grab tricks, grinds, manuals, double direction tricks, multi-direction special tricks, grind and manual extensions, wall rides, acid drops, spine transfers, and of course, the Wally plant. As far as the overall gameplay is concerned, it mostly resembles Pro Skater 4, and that's perfectly fine. However, I did say this game has some obvious Vicarious Vision quirks. First of all, you can't manual spin, which means by extension, you can't rail spin, hyper spin, or wall ride spin. Manual extension tricks have a solid animation, similar to American Skateland and Proving Ground for the DS. That being said, this is a Pro Skater title, and it's outright impossible to get rid of some of the tech. For instance, you can drop off a ledge for a small distance before releasing ollie to do a late ollie. You can do the same thing on rails. And you can preemptively tap a flip trick and do a 1x butt slap. For those of you who played Thug Pro, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But for those of you who don't, it's really just a way to keep you in the air for longer so that you can carry a combo over a farther distance. There are also accidental wall bounces scattered around. Every time they fixed one, another one popped up somewhere, so you'll find them with a little bit of hunting. I actually still have some footage of the crazy stuff I found when the game first came out a few years ago. I don't think there's anything more to say really, it's a Pro Skater title, and if you played one then this will be just as familiar as the rest of them. I want to do something I don't normally do, and touch on the Create a Park feature. There are a lot of mods now with incredible imports of other maps from Tony Hawk titles and other games in general, but before that was possible, before this game came to PC, all we had was the Create a Park editor, and this is by far the best one in the entire series. There are bendy, twisty, warpy pieces that you can make make into 10 million different shapes, as well as a variety of regular create-a-part pieces to keep things feeling familiar. Better still is that the part limit is much bigger than any other game in the series, meaning you can create some absolutely insane parks that rival the quality of the main level sets. When you couple that in with all of the personal challenges, individual goal runs for every pro skater, all of the speedruns, all the hidden stuff, this game has such an amazing variety of things to do that are meant to keep you playing for a long time. It's not Underground or Proving Ground good, but it's damn close. Visually, it's been a few years, but this game still looks absolutely fantastic. It doesn't have the toy box charm of older pro skater titles, but it does have the style of Proving Ground ramped up a little bit. Some of the objects and created skater parts come directly from Proving Ground, like the long hair. Everything that was old and brought in got a polygon and texture upscale, so the overall fidelity is so much greater than anything in the series prior. The maps are all perfect recreations of the Pro Skater 1 and 2 maps, with absolutely no creative liberties taken. And while I do think they could have mixed up a few things, I do appreciate what they did a lot. Being able to jump into a bunch of maps that I already know, coupled in with a gameplay system that I already understand, is just a recipe for a good time. If Pro Skater 1 and 2 are steaks, then Pro Skater 1 plus 2 is a dry-aged steak with that little bit of umami flavor to make it taste more mature. The soundtrack is a great combination of music from Pro Skater 1 and 2 with a couple of modern additions mixed in to reinforce the idea that this is a newer game for a newer age. In the works of the older stuff, we've got classics like Goldfinger, Dead Kennedys, The Vandals, Power Man 5000, and more. In the new category, we have names like Machine Gun Kelly, Mercules with Tech 9 and Hobson, Billy Talent, and a few others. This soundtrack is by far one of the best in any game I've played here. It's a classic, it's comfortable, and it's also new and interesting. None of the new music sounds out of place, and none of the old music ever gets old. It all just works, and it's a set list that I listen to even when I'm not playing this game because it's all just good. I'll go ahead and leave a link to the whole thing in the description. Finally, there is real-world skateboarding footage because it just wouldn't be a Tony Hawk title without it. If I can harness my inner Steve-O for a second, yeah dude. Between Proving Ground and this, there was an 11-year difference where we didn't really get a great Tony Hawk title. I know I'm the first person in the room to defend Pro Skater 5, Ride, and Shred, but I also recognize that there are a ton of people who just hate those. It would have been easy to forget about the footage, but Vicarious didn't. One thing that stands true throughout every single entry in the series, even the unpopular ones, is that the footage is there to remind you what you're doing is a fantasy version of a real sport that you could be participating in. Not everybody's gonna jump up, go out, and skate, but that's not the message. The message is that there is a lot of life out there, and the world we live in is a beautiful, irreplaceable thing that all of us were born to experience. So whether you're skating, participating in other action sports, going out with friends, or even just going for a walk once in a while, life is short, and the only person that can make the most of your life is you. So I hope everybody out there is going out and enjoying it once in a while. With all of that out of the way, I'll go ahead and give Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 plus 2 a rating of 9 out of 10. That probably isn't a surprise. I'm guessing at least a few of you figured that out when I said I bought it more than once. When this game came out, there were really only two groups of people who cared about it. There were those who loved it, like I do, and they saw just how much effort and care went in making a faithful Pro Skater experience, but there were also those who really didn't like it. They didn't like the way it felt or looked, they didn't like the Vicarious Visions quirks, they were pissed off about the multiplayer chat, kinda like I was. I'm not even gonna lie, that was a kicker. Something. It was always something. These days, though, it's impossible to find anybody playing it who doesn't like it. Everybody who stayed did so because they saw just how good it actually is. To me, it was like reliving one of the most important and memorable parts of my childhood, but many years later, with a more developed mind to think about it. It's not perfect. Truth be told, I miss being able to rail wall and manual spin. Those little bits of fantasy tech add just that tiny bit of completeness needed to make it feel more fluid and fantastical. But I can forget that stuff because it's still just great. One thing I kept hearing from the public opinion was that they wanted a 3+4 remake, and that sounds cool in theory, but there's a way better way to do it. The map list from 3 should have been DLC for this game, and Pro Skater 4 deserved its own independent remake because it was the first game to feature open world mechanics. Psst. Hey, Microsoft, you guys own this series now. What's a guy gotta do to get you to release more Tony Hawk games? You're not gonna forget how much money they make, right? Also, you now own Guitar Hero, and we could definitely use another one of those. A lot of eager fans out here waiting to be fed a snack they've been craving for well over a decade. Now that I'm done with all of that, I think it's time to do something completely out of left field. Something I never thought about, at least not lately. Something I've never had a request for. Something from my childhood that I remember as if I studied it fervently. Next time, we're gonna take take a look at Shadow the Hedgehog. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, then oh boy, are you in for something unforgettable. After that, I said I would do something that I needed to get done before the end of the year, so up next in the action sports list is Jet Set Radio. And that should be interesting for me because I've never actually played through it before. I've only ever played it for minutes at a time, but it's a beloved game to a lot of people, so I think I've put it off for just a little bit too long. But until next time, thank you, and have a nice day.